This podcast is recorded on stolen and unceded Aboriginal land.
We acknowledge the First Nations and elders of this country and join their calls for justice. Always was, always will be Aboriginal land.
I wish I need a can so I can open it and go. That's a fresh can of Serious Danger, the podcast about green politics in Australia that you just opened. And let me tell you, it's fizzy and delicious. That's a taste of an unofficial, of a podcast that's not an official Greens Party podcast. And is that Mike the Griffin I taste in there?
I don't like this bit.
Not well. He's the producer though. Hey, Patreon subscribers, thanks for supporting the show. As a little treat, as you know, because you support the show, because you make everything happen, we like to give you little treats. By the way, I'm Emerald, and that's Tom. But you know that.
Hello.
Hi. We are, of course, back with another bonus episode, and it's Inside the Greens. We are up to chapter 10. Tom has read this. I'm behind. I told Tom I've got too many. All my books came in off hold at the library at once, and so I'm in a race against the due dates because I don't want to miss a library due date and prevent other people from reading my books. That means I can't read books that aren't urgent and necessary. So I haven't read this chapter. Again, I'm going.
This is urgent and necessary. What are you, crazy? We're talking about 2012 here. Come on.
Urgent and necessary. Yeah, but I would be preventing other people from reading good books if I didn't.
That is very
decide.
socialist.
And you're just going to tell me what happened anyway. So
yeah, that's true.
I
think that's why I love libraries as a concept, and I liked getting books in the library as a kid. But like when I was getting longer, I'm a very slow reader actually, and so I hated that pressure, that kind of deadline of having to finish the book in time to return it.
I think it helps me because I think it helps me structure my reading. Like,
oh, okay, right. Like you got to
yeah.
get it in.
Yeah.
No, I prefer to read books over a matter of months and years in a chapter by chapter process.
Do you have multiple going at once?
Yes, sometimes. And that's often a sign of me drifting off interest in the one that I've got going on. I'm into reading plays at the moment, and plays are great because you can read them in like one sitting and you can feel so intellectual and smart and because you've just read a play.
I've never read a play.
And it's all spaced out so you can get through a page really quick. It's fucking awesome.
Yeah, I've read like 150 pages in one sitting. Very smart. It's all part of your new glasses shtick, I'm sure. Got glasses, started reading plays, need your black skivvy.
I'm in public intellectual. Chapter 10 is Milne Rebuilds. Can you remember where we ended at chapter 9 of Inside the Greens by Paddy Manning, Emerald Moon?
No. We recorded, in fairness, we recorded this a long time ago. Refresh my memory.
Well, no, I got to remember actually. Did I look over this? We've come to the end. Bob Brown has retired, okay? We're in the middle of the Gillard minority government. We've had the clean energy package. That's all fantastic. We went through all the CPRS thing in chapter 9. That was a three-parter of that particular chapter. But yes, 2012, Gillard's prime minister, and Bob Brown has said, all right, he's passed a note to his partner at that conference saying, time's up, time to go.
Time's up, yeah.
He's heading off. So Christine Milne has taken over, and the first half of this chapter, which is what we're looking at for this episode, we'll look at the beginning of Christine Milne's leadership, the disintegration of the party's relationship with Labor, and all the drama around the 2013 election and its subsequent fallout. There is some spicy drama here, actually. It's quite good.
Well, yeah, I was not around. I was alive, but not around in 2013. But I know that it holds like quite a like, what's the word that I'm looking for? But like, there is fear attached to the year 2013. I think particularly in Queensland. I don't know if it was like just Queensland, but I know that was like a bad election.
Yes, the results in Queensland not good. I mean, 2012 you got Campbell Newman being elected, so spirits were pretty low.
Yeah.
And 2013 not great. You'll be delighted to know that Drew Hutton makes an appearance in this particular chapter.
Oh, so Drew. Oh, goody. See, this is, I will say, like, I've been hearing with all the shit that's happened recently with Drew Hutton and the transphobia, etc. But like, apparently he was never really an easy guy to get along with. Like, it sounds like this is not actually the first time he's caused drama.
Certainly not. Yes, I think the quote that's coming up will shed some light on this. And
Okay.
this is what Osman Faruqi said on the weekly episode we were chatting
Oh,
about it.
yeah,
In
right.
his experience of being in the Greens was like people respected his environmental credentials, but
Yes.
yeah, by the time stuff was kicking around about more than a decade and a half ago, people were a bit like, he's a bit loopy.
Yeah. Okay.
So what were you doing in 2012, 2013? I like to do these little life check-ins at this point once we're alive,
Yeah,
kicking
this
around.
is
What were
just
you up to?
there's kind of like a parallel Emerald's life story thing running with the Inside the Greens, isn't there?
Yeah.
I was working at Bottrell Van Kempen Solicitors. Bottrell Van Kempen, this is Emerald speaking.
Oh, wow. What
Yeah,
kind of...
that was my legal secretary era.
Oh, God, okay. Because when did you finish high school again?
2012 was my graduating
Wow.
year, so I went straight into law, like straight into a 9 to 5. I was trotting down to the post office in my little heels. That's what I was doing.
Jesus Christ. Did you want to be a lawyer?
No.
Okay.
No, I just wanted to work in office. I was like, it was a fucking, honestly, that was a bit of a dream job. I was very lucky to get like a 9 to 5 office job in Byron straight out of school.
Yeah.
Dream come true. So yeah, I was living the dream. Tom, what were you doing?
I was still co-hosting the Triple J breakfast program.
Oh, you know what I was doing? I was driving to work in the mornings listening to Triple J. Seriously, when I used to work at Bottrell Van Kempen, I would listen to Triple J, and I remember you being on the radio.
And
I liked it. And I remember, I think I've said this, like I do remember enjoying listening to the radio so much that one time I have a memory of sitting in the car park and like being like, oh, I'll just listen for a little bit longer before I go into work.
Whoa. Oh,
Yeah.
That's so nice. Did you ever think one day I'm going to host a podcast with that man?
No. No, I did not.
2012 was my little Holocaust joke controversy. I don't know if you remember that. That
Was it?
a bleak
No,
time.
I
Yep,
did
that was
not.
a good time. Also in 2012, Julia Gillard, at the end of 2012, we did like an end of year special that was based around the Mayan prophecy, you know, how the Mayans were saying the world was going to end in 2012.
Yeah.
So we did this like outside broadcast show and like built up all this thing to the idea that it was the end of the world. And we asked Julia Gillard's office to record a message as if it was the end of the world. And she fucking did.
That's actually kind of cool. That's actually kind of cool.
It was insane.
That's the coolest thing I think I've ever heard about Julia Gillard. And yes, I'm including the speech.
And we just... This is the real speech that people
this
should
is
be
the
talking
real,
about.
yeah. Print this on a t-shirt.
We sent the script away. She just recorded it and sent it back. And it got reported in China, I believe, that the Australian Prime Minister had made that particular speech. It was
That's funny. That's good shit.
Good times. From the day she became leader in April 2012, Christine Milne knew she would cop the brunt of a looming electoral backlash after holding the balance of power. Bob Brown had timed his departure well, and commentators almost universally assumed the Greens would go backwards at the next election without their charismatic founder. Is Bob Brown charismatic? I guess so.
Yeah, he's got Riz.
He is Riz, you're right. Opposition leader Tony Abbott predicted the Greens would struggle, comparing them to the Democrats without Don Chip, which was either ignorant or misleading, because the Democrats' peak came years after Chip's retirement. It was so weird for Tony to be wrong and stuck in the past.
Crazy.
Nevertheless, Brown's departure posed a fundamental challenge for the Greens. Could anyone fill the gap he left behind, either inside the party or in the minds of the voting public? So Milne was elected unanimously by the party room as the party leader. She was the first female leader of the Australian Greens, of course. She was also the first heterosexual leader of the party. So
moving backwards.
Step backwards.
You know? Should have been trans.
Drew Hutton. We've talked about Christine Milne a few times. She's popped up in a variety of different ways. I think it's no secret that there is some elements of her politics and certain positions on issues that aren't our particular politics. But what do you make of Miss Milne?
Miss Milne? Very little. That's the thing. I have to say, like, at this point in time, I was not engaged in politics at all. I would have had no idea. If you had said the name Christine Milne to me at that time, I would have said who. And then by the time that I got involved, it was Richard Di Natale. And so, like, she's neither Bob Brown, the founding, you know, the looming father of the Greens, like this huge figure, nor someone who was a leader of the party while I've been paying attention to it. So I actually, like, know very little about her.
Man, I mean, again, the generational differences and her inclination towards being more conservative or away from radical politics like you and I. I've seen her speak a lot. You read about the history. She's popped up in this book a whole bunch of times. I mean, yeah, her dedication and service to the movement broadly is pretty amazing. And I remember on a number of occasions, and including on social media, every now Christine Milne will just basically just say fuck all the haters. And she's been in the green so long, been in the and has heard it all before. So the way that she sort of dismisses a whole bunch of nonsense, hand wringing and pearl clutching around where the Greens are at, I find very refreshing and good to see.
Did she come out publicly, kind of make any intervention around the housing negotiations, the HAF stuff?
I can't remember that. I can't remember a single quote. I don't think Christine Milne has ever got on this kind of the Greens are too extreme. They got to settle down.
No.
And let's get
I
into
mean,
the
in the
center.
other way. I get the impression that she was maybe, I just don't know if this was public or just stuff that I'd heard, that she was supportive of what the Greens were doing and pushing for a better deal on that. So I know that, but I also know at the same time that one interaction or memory I do have of her is being one of the leaders who wrote the op-ed in The Guardian or whatever it was, being no, only MPs should still be able to elect the leader of the Greens. Members shouldn't have a say, which I was like, fuck you. But there were lots of people involved in that who I respect. So
yeah, that is the way. And I think also because she was in the heat of the CPRS thing, again, her constantly having to fight over the history and remind people what actually happened and that kind of stuff. That's good. Her fierce advocacy on climate had sharpened perceptions, particularly in the business community, that she was more hardline than Brown. From the get-go, columnists described Milne as boring, shrill, or no Bob Brown. The Daily Telegraph even called her a communist.
Shrill is so, not to be that person, but do you ever hear a man called shrill?
I think men can be shrill, yeah, because I think non-binary people can be shrill. I'm pretty cool.
So true.
I'm well, you can't be boring and a communist at the same time.
No,
if you're a communist, at least you're.
I don't even know if you can be boring and shrill at the same time.
There was a fair degree of sexism mixed in with all the commentary, even as the country suffered a bout of introspection over the treatment of its first female Prime Minister, Julia Gillard. I had been criticised from day one, and I regard it as a sexist criticism for being too strong, too uncompromising, and not smiling enough. And she details the idea that, yes, if a man's strong, they say, hey, he's a strong leader. If a woman does that, they're like, hey, you should smile more, honey, be more feminine. And
yeah, it's like the Taylor Swift song.
Go on.
The Man. Yeah. So if I was a man, I'd be the man.
So I see.
Taylor Swift was the first person to come up with this concept, so that's why I'm kind of referencing her as a founding scholar in the field,
I forget that she invented feminism, yes.
Yeah.
Now, what do you think about this? Because I feel like we've touched on this on the show a little while. Undeniably, there is horrific misogyny and sexism still in our society, and is absolutely directed toward women, across society, but particularly women political leaders. I think that's absolutely true. At the same time, I think we've also made the critique that sometimes bad faith appeals to feminism are used to deflect legitimate criticisms of female political leaders. The obvious example to me is Hillary Clinton. Now, undeniably, Hillary Clinton faced sexist abuse in her course of public life, but also her supporters will point to her feminism and the fact that she's a woman to say, yeah, don't worry about her foreign policy. I'm with her because she's her and she's great.
Yeah.
What do you think about that?
I mean, I think it's the same as any kind of ad hominem attack, or just criticism, that you look at the substance of the criticism and the way that it's being presented. And when someone is criticizing a leader for being quote unquote shrill, what are you saying? What about her actions? What about her shrill? What do you mean by that? It's hard to take any reading of that other than, I don't like that you're a woman.
Yeah.
If they're saying, you need to smile more, that's clearly sexist critique. I think if they were saying, it's shit that you support the export of weapons to Gaza, to Israel, then you being a woman doesn't really factor into that.
You don't like a woman being involved in business?
Yeah.
Interesting. Really interesting.
Interesting. Yeah.
Milne sort of takes this new position. She thinks she has, an obligation to reach out to all elements of the party. She feels like she's got to do a little bit of like healing and also an introduction of
Repair.
herself because obviously she knows she's not Bob Brown, and obviously people have rallied around Bob Brown for a very long time. And initially, people within the Greens do seem to get on board and sort of say, "Yep, we've got a new leader. We're going to back him in." We didn't vote for her, of course, but anyway, that's perhaps less of an issue at the time. Gillard and Milne confirmed that Brown's retirement did not affect the Greens' agreement with Labor, but was nonetheless a delicate time for the federal government. Gillard was flagging in the face of the remorseless negativity of Abbott and white-anting by Kevin Rudd, who had challenged unsuccessfully for the leadership in February 2012. I completely forgot that. And resigned as foreign minister, returning to the backbench. The Gillard government was besieged. Never comfortable in partnership, Labor and the Greens were now borderline hostile to each other and searching for a way to extricate themselves from their agreement without bringing down the government. Milne commented at the time, "We mostly end up," this is interesting, I'm interested to hear what your thoughts of this, "we mostly end up holding the balance of power in those scenarios when a government goes from majority to minority because they're on the nose for one reason or another. So when you take over the balance of power in that arrangement, the voters actually meant to get rid of that government and didn't quite make it. And so it's very hard to build from there. It's always a really hard dynamic."
That's interesting.
Yeah.
Has that
Because I
held-
read that and I was like,
Yeah.
well, there's an element of that that's certainly true. Okay. Obviously, no majority major party government wants to find themselves in minority. When that happened, you've had yourselves a close election, but the voters have delivered a certain parliament and the people in that parliament have to deal with that. But yeah, I was just interested. Would a Greens leader say that today, or are we sort of saying that we're trying to normalize minority parliaments and say that this is totally fine?
Yeah, it's an odd point to make, and I'm not sure I agree with it because, like, what you're getting at is maybe we are involved in something that doesn't reflect the will of the public here.
You're right.
But
Yes.
the point is that if the public voted for minor parties and Labor, like more than they voted for the coalition, then that's what they intended. It's a bit, yeah, like maybe it's almost kind of implying that voters didn't know what they were really voting for. Like they didn't really understand that this might be the outcome. I don't know.
Yeah, and I take the point that, yes, if the Greens find themselves in the balance of power, that has to come the result of people not voting for, as a collective, voting for a majority government. Yeah, that's certainly true. But that's also, you could also paint that as like, no, it's good. That means more people are voting for the Greens.
Yeah.
Which allows that kind of politics and their voice to be heard and that kind of influence and power to be played out in the legislature. And we want that. That's good.
But it does get at, obviously, like, I mean, this is kind of within the context of the broader dilemma around being a minor party who then has to work with a government in order to wield any sort of power in Parliament, is that, yeah, if they're a minority government, it means that they don't have a thumping kind of majority of support, and therefore you might turn people off by being associated with an unpopular government.
Yes. And as we'll see later on, running on the successes of that government is in the next election can get very complicated as well. For the minor party, you're saying, hey, look at all the cool stuff we did when we were in minority. Whereas the Labour Party want to say, we did okay, but we'd really prefer our own majority. Thank you very much. Don't vote for those fucking Greens. Milne says her first priority as leader is to reach out to regional communities and progressive business, which wasn't totally expanded on in the chapter, but I think she means like businesses that are starting to do stuff that is like in regards to climate action. So
like
she said
renewable energy companies.
Yes, in her experience of organizing the clean energy package, she was like, oh, there are people out there in the business community who do care about climate change and want to do something about it. But progressive business.
Does it include, you know, I think people get into about like women-owned businesses.
Yes.
Do you reckon that falls under this umbrella? Yeah.
The Smiling More business. we help women smile more in business and NGOs.
Look, if there's a business out there that's helping women smile more, sign me up. I like smiling. Make me happy. Is that not what all businesses promise?
Brighten up, Toots Inc. In the small party room of 10, there was a three-way contest for the deputy leadership, with Sarah Hanson-Young again putting up her hand, as did Scott Ludlam and Adam Bandt. Bandt, who was also described as a Marxist in the News Corp tabloids, won it comfortably, and there was a certain logic to having a leadership team that was balanced across the upper and lower houses, female and male. Ben Oquist took over as chief of staff in Milne's office, and that was where tensions first emerged.
Why? Because...
Oh, you'll see.
Okay, all right.
Well, basically, I mean, Manning lays out a little bit of it. Ben Oquist has been Bob Brown's sort of right-hand man for a very long
It's like
time.
Bob Brown, Sarah Hanson-Young, Ben Oquist. That's
yes,
a clique, if you will.
Certainly, they're very close. And again, as we've mentioned, Sarah Hanson-Young and Ben Oquist are now happily married. But yes, Bob Brown and Ben had what was called the Bob and Ben show. And basically, they got what they wanted, both within the party and in the parliament. That was sort of how things worked for a long time. Christine Milne said she wanted to sort of consult more widely. And it seems, reading this chapter, that's when the relationship became a little bit easy because Oquist has to adjust to being like
continue
calling the shots and then not so much.
Yeah, okay, right, I see.
And as we'll see, those tensions do sort of come to a head in the wake of the 2013 election.
Yeah, okay.
Then, look, everybody, Drew's here. Milne says she put a lot of effort into fixing the relationship between the Australian Greens and the New South Wales Greens. And in Queensland, Drew Hutton backed Milne's calls to build new constituencies in regional Australia, urging the Greens to stop holding focus groups in the inner suburbs of Melbourne and Sydney and to move towards the centre on economic issues.
What is the centre? What is the centre?
Well, indeed.
Tell me what the centre is.
Being pro-business, obviously. Their reflexes need to be less anti-business and they need to start reaching out to business, Hutton said, especially areas like manufacturing, tourism, agriculture, those sectors that have gone at least partly down the road to sustainability.
What?
Manufacturing and agriculture. I could be wrong. I know that, their Farmers Federation did sort of come around or change their tune somewhat when it comes to sort of climate issues. And I know that Drew Hutton has experience in the Lock the Gate movement, sure. Yeah. But I'm pretty sure there's still massive forces within the agriculture industry that do not give a fuck about climate change. We're pushing back at it against every single...
It's just a weird angle to take because he's kind of trying to draw this line where he's like, there are some businesses that are good. Like there are some not even businesses, there are some industries that are like actually good that you should engage with. And there are some that are bad. And I feel like this is a very old, it's like that idea of, there's nothing wrong with capitalism. It's crony capitalism. And it's like you're drawing these arbitrary distinctions when like ultimately you either are a party for like the interests of capital and business or not. And you just confuse yourself by being like, well, sustainable agriculture is a thing. Like, and hey, regenerative agriculture, like that's helping the environment. So we should now be pro-business, ?
Yeah, and it's that approach of like, we need to fit our vision for climate action. We need to bend that around the wills and whims of business and make sure we fit that within a neoliberal capitalist economic model, right? Like that defines the limits of how much climate action we can do and what we need to do, so climate action be damned. It's like, nah, man. Like, nah, bro.
Also, like, what is the purpose of a political party? Because there's an argument that it's like by being staunch on climate and environmental action, you have played a role in pressuring businesses as well as government to act more sustainably. And so maybe you should continue down that path. It's like, what is your job as a party to reward or just support like things that other sectors are already doing, or is it to push for better and more?
Yeah. Business is looking after business. There are plenty of people working for business. Yeah. The Greens political party does not need to spend its time worrying about the interests of capital, okay? We need to be fighting capital and we need to be listening to ordinary people, workers, and the science in order to address this existential crisis, please.
Yeah.
When will we hear from business and their views on climate action? God,
yeah,
they're
so
voiceless.
Underrepresented. That's right. The real disenfranchised group of Australia.
Bob Brown is replaced in the Senate by Peter Whish-Wilson, who was picked to boost the Greens' economic credentials, started out as the party spokesperson on trade, competition policy, and small business.
Because he was like a banker, an investment banker, right? Before he... Sorry,
he was a merchant banker.
A merchant banker.
No, that's right.
Whatever that means.
That's right. He was also a Tamar Valley winemaker and a surfer.
Of course.
He's a surfing senator.
Of course.
He'd campaigned against the Guns pulp mill and he joined the Greens in 2008. But yes, before moving to Tasmania, he'd been a merchant banker for a decade, working around the world for Merrill Lynch and Deutsche Bank. A Duntroon graduate, Whish-Wilson's politics had started right of centre. He voted for Howard in 2001 as a younger man, when, as he now says, he had his head up his arse, and shifted, gradually towards the left, accelerating in the wake of the financial crisis. Although he was viewed with some suspicion on the left of the Greens, given his background in high finance and the military, Whish-Wilson argued that it was being a merchant banker that had turned him into a socialist.
Yeah.
Now, I think that is fascinating, and I would like to hear that story more and more, please.
I think that's cool too. And I agree. Like, I think when I was still getting a sense of Peter Whish-Wilson, I also regarded him with a bit of suspicion, being like, I don't know, this guy's got a bit of a conservative background, but like, clearly he's genuinely on board. Also, props for having the most like consistent and just clear brand over the last almost 20 years now, where you're like, yep, I'm a senator and I surf. Questions? I'm a dude that surfs. I love surfing and I'm a senator. I'm senator surfer.
You better believe that's in my social media handle.
Yeah, I love the ocean. I love the water. I love the ocean and the beach. And I'm in the Senate.
I'm hanging 10 and I'm fighting for the release of Julian Assange. Fucking deal with it, bro.
Yeah.
All right, so then we've got the rest of the parliamentary term in 2012 and 2013. Milne's the new leader. She says she's going after the mining industry, but the mining boom pretty much ends and fades out in 2012, and prices for exports drops pretty sharply, which sort of complicates that political program, I suppose. Labor cut hard in the 2012-2013 budget, deepening a policy rift with the Greens by extending the Howard-era welfare-to-work reforms, which forced single parents off the pension and onto New Start. Howard's 2006 reform had been prospective, but Gillard's reform removed the grandfathering, hitting 100,000 sole parents, most of them women, very hard. The change passed through the Senate on the 10th of October, the same day that Gillard unleashed her celebrated misogyny speech on Tony Abbott.
Yes. Just
Milne,
pause on that for a second, because like a lot of people do know this now, but again, that is the change that we're talking about when we say that Julia Gillard screwed over working women on the same day as her celebrated misogyny speech. That was it. Anyway, continue.
For Milne, it was a galling hypocrisy that left a sour taste in her mouth. Gillard was posing as a defender of women while depriving thousands of single mums of pension payments. In the Senate, the Greens community spokesperson, Rachel Seward, fired up, warning that Labor's cuts would drive already vulnerable people further into poverty.
Female on female violence. So sad. They should just stick together.
What happened to women supporting women?
It's called solidarity. Like, be nice. Stop tearing each other down.
Of course, your Labor...
Sorry.
Your Labor apologists, your Van Battens of the world, would say that Gillard has, apologised for that since, so it's all fine, and no further analysis needs to be made or critique of that. I remember she was asked on Q&A, and she was like, "It was a Howard government measure. I don't know. It was a crazy time. I was given the misogyny speech. I don't know if people remember that."
She was like, "I was very busy. I was writing a speech. I don't know if you've heard it."
Well, she didn't write it. Actually, she did it off the top of her dome.
Sorry. She was preparing.
In 2012 as well, Campbell Newman wins in Queensland. A victory for the little guy there. Bad state election for the party. The Green votes drops pretty much across the whole state. Local government elections in New South Wales aren't good for the Greens either. There was also a by-election for the state seat of Melbourne, which the Greens didn't win. They're obviously very hopeful because Adam had won the federal seat in 2010, did not win in that particular instance. At the ALP's national conference in Sydney, right faction power brokers Sam Dastyari and Paul Howes, there's a blast in the past, ripped into the Greens as extremist populists, comparing them with One Nation and calling for Labor to stop preferencing them. Victorian opposition leader Dan Andrews described the intervention from New South Wales as unhelpful, saying he wanted to beat the Greens, not belt them.
Okay.
Interesting. Incredible that in the 2012 ALP National Conference, right, like just think of everything, like Labor's in government, think of everything that's going on within the fucking Federal Labor Party. They're still taking time to be like, the Greens suck and they're as bad as Pauline Hanson.
Yeah.
There's an election in the ACT. The Greens vote drops by 5%. Government comes down to the single Greens member who has returned, Shane Rattenbury, like as who he's going to support, decides the government. he backs Labor and he gains a ministry. And in Western Australia, a bad election for the party too. Big swings against. We lost 2 seats, including the seat of the unofficial leader, Giz Watson, as well. She's gone.
R.I.P.
So bleak times.
Yeah, not a good time. Yeah, this is definitely why, like, I think elders in Queensland, 2013 is kind of presented as like, you think things are tough now? Well, this is kind of before recent events, I would say. But before, it's like, you people, you young ones don't know what it's like to go through something like 2013 and to build up again from that. So yeah.
It's funny too, because I mean, 2012 is when I'm sort of starting to get a lot more politically engaged, I suppose, like just sort of like actually following politics a little bit more and talking a lot more about direct politics in my stand-up. In 2012, I did a show about, what do you do, like trying to do things to make the world a better place. But the general, and being on the radio and covering the news, the general vibe was just like, fuck this. Like, this is just, nothing's getting done, and the backstabbing and the parliamentary bullshit. And again, that's just my perception. I know there was lots of actual, policy stuff going on, but yes, certainly I do remember just a general sense of the nation being pretty disillusioned and fed up with the whole fucking thing.
Yeah. It's true. For me, it was like 2013, maybe 2014 that I was encouraged by Mr. Van Kempen himself. My boss would be like, you should be interested in this stuff. Like, watch this speech. Like, I was just aware of it being like chaotic and horrible. And that was I guess that would have been 2014.
Tony Abbott wins at the end of 2013. But in 2012, so Rudd goes for the leadership again at the start of 2012 in February, right, and doesn't get it, right? But then he makes the challenge and then it doesn't happen, but then proceeds this big campaign of white anting constantly. So you've got a government at war with itself. Of course, Gillard made the disastrous decision to actually, roll him in the first place.
Yeah.
But yes, you've just got this sense of a Labor Party and all the factional stuff rolling through and no one really giving a shit about actually doing anything to make the country better, but rather jostling for the leadership.
Yeah.
That was all part of it. Ever since the 2010 election, the Greens leader had met weekly with Prime Minister Gillard in Canberra, but Milne's first meeting for 2013 was perfunctory, box ticking. It was clear to Milne that Labor was not going to deal with any of the unfinished business under their original agreement with the Greens. That might include the Leaders Debate Commission that Bob Brown wanted to get in there. Consumed by fending off Rudd, Gillard has started the year by nominating the September federal election date 9 months out. Now, I do remember that, and that was so weird.
Yeah.
That I forget the reasoning there, but again, with the power to call an election basically whatever you want, she said, "No, in 9 months we're going to have the 2013 election." Now, again, somewhat admirable. I'm for fixed terms. I think we should know when the election dates are set, but it was just sort of a weird choice from her in 2013.
It's unusual. I'd say that.
Certainly, as it gives Kevin Rudd plenty of time to map out a strategy, I suppose, to get the job back and then be the leader by the time the election comes around.
It's true.
Milne records in a memoir that she decided to acknowledge the reality that the two parties' working relationship had broken down. In fact, was at risk of becoming an abusive relationship. Just before her own National Press Club address to kick off the election year, Milne called Gillard to say that she was about to declare the Labor-Greens agreement dead, although the minor party would still guarantee confidence and supply. Gillard's only response was to ask whether Milne intended to attack her trustworthiness at a personal level.
What?
What are you going to say about me, though?
Yeah, but what about me? You're not going to be mean to me, are you? That's so interesting.
Milne did not attack Gillard's
Do you think
trustworthiness at a personal level.
Is it poor form to notify Labor moments before you make the public announcement that you're going to declare this deal dead?
Reading over this, I find it a little bit hard to ascertain what I think of this particular approach from Christine Milne. Maybe I'll just read a little bit more and then I'm interested in your thoughts on what you think of it. In a repeat of the termination of the Labor-Green Accord in Tasmania in 1992, Milne announced that it was Labor, not the Greens, who had walked away from the agreement. Milne's main accusation was that the government had rejected a Greens proposal to improve the dud mining tax, which was failing to raise any money. "Let's call a spade," Milne told the press club. She said that, "Let's call a spade." Milne told the press club that Labor had chosen the big miners and was therefore not honouring the agreement to work together on stuff. Basically was backing it in and wasn't up for any conversation about changing it. Journalists pointed out that the Greens could force Labor to amend the mining tax if they wanted to by making it a condition of any further legislative support, and reminded Milne that her party had in fact voted for the watered-down mining tax. Milne was less convincing about the reasons for the sudden termination of the agreement until she explained, "They have ended it. We haven't ended it. They have walked away. There's no point in having meetings if the meetings are only there to be told what the Labor Party has already decided to do. I can read that in the paper or get it by letter. There is no point in trying to pretend that something is working when it's not. Let's just be upfront, and I think people are going to actually be really happy with that because the community are now clear. We've got a clear run to the election."
A clear run to the election. Yeah, is this like, a relationship where one party just kind of treats the other one like shit until they force them to break up with them? Is like that how we're meant to read this?
Basically, yeah. I mean, I'm sure as we approach the 2013 election, the Labor Party was, as we can hear from the National Conference, will be like, fuck these people. From their point of view, they want to try and put as much distance between themselves and the Greens. They wouldn't, acquiesce to any suggestions from the Greens, and particularly around the mining tax, which they viewed was like electoral poison, and they've had this massive campaign against them for the mining industry. So they're not going to be probably open to that conversation. I guess the question is whether is Milne's interpretation of that reasonable, that she's sort of saying, well, we had an agreement, we should have a back and forth, we should have a relationship in which we can float ideas and work on stuff to improve the country. That would be her position.
Yeah, I mean,
I'm a little bit on the fence about whether you can do that. You can sort of get up at the National Press Club and say, Labor's ended this relationship, it's over.
Yeah. On
That
its
seems a bit odd to
face,
me.
I would agree that I'd be a little bit skeptical of that approach, were it not for the fact that, based on her retelling of that conversation before the press club address with Gillard, and just all of the context based on that, it seems like they had no other option at that point. It's effectively, like I said, you're being the other party has clearly just decided to completely disregard the agreement, the relationship, and it's a bit, for them to, if there was any kind of attempt on their part to then take the high ground and be like, well, you ended this agreement. It's no, I think that any good faith reading would be like, well, yeah, functionally, you did.
Yeah. And I can absolutely imagine that meeting with the Greens, between Labor and the Greens, was them sitting down going, here's what we're doing as the Labor Party. Goodbye.
Yeah, I'm so sad you don't understand.
A few months later, in late June, Rudd retook the leadership. Again, insane that this happened. And I remember at the time being like, fuck hell. I remember that time being like, I don't know, maybe Labor has run out its ability to be as fucked itself over here. I hate Tony Abbott. I hate everything he represents, but how can the Labor Party credibly say to the Australian people, we can stay in charge when the guy they got rid of is now just back? For Milne, the change at the helm was a tragedy in hindsight because Rudd refused to acknowledge, let alone campaign upon, the achievements of the Labor-Green agreement in the Gillard years, the most progressive, reformist period of government for decades, something few people knew. Which I think is totally
he basically,
true.
Instead of taking an election, an approach to the election campaign that's keep us because we're good, it's
yes,
I'm going to do better than my shitty counterpart has just done,
Yes. The government was going so badly that I had to replace the Prime Minister.
Yes.
But still trust us as a party to stay in government. Yes.
Yeah. Well, it's deeply egotistical
But so
too.
you can't campaign on this record.
It makes sense.
Yes,
it fits for Kevin Rudd, who ran a presidential campaign successfully in 2007, to then be like, well, this is another presidential campaign. It's about me.
Yeah. I thought this was funny. There was certainly no love lost between Rudd and Milne, who wrote of the icy meeting in which the Prime Minister asked her for confidence and supply over the weeks to the election. Just like to be in that room and be like, are you going to support my government, which I need, Christine? Milne wrote, I think the reason Rudd Labour loyalists see the CPRS as the be-all and end-all is that it is Rudd's and not Gillard's policy. When he overthrew Prime Minister Gillard in 2013, he ignored all that she had achieved, especially the clean energy package, which I think does absolutely track with the way that history is told.
Yeah.
Secondly, Labor refuses ever to talk about its successes in minority government with the Australian Greens in balance of power. That would give credit to the Australian Greens and normalise minority or multi-party government when Labor wants to go to elections, reinforcing the two-party system with messaging that says majority government is good, minority government is bad.
Yeah. Yeah.
Also true.
Yeah.
And we are seeing that play out in Tasmania at the moment, at the time of recording, in which the Labor Party would rather shoot itself in the face than form any kind of minority agreement with the Tasmanian Greens. In Sean Crow's Whitlam's Children, Greens are very proud of the minority government years. Labor people, just not so much. They don't like talking about it. And Adam Bandt told Sean Crow that for the ALP's Green critics, a successful left-wing alliance was worse than an unsuccessful one. I think part of the untold story, this is Adam Bandt now, is how much of the right wing of the Labor Party sabotaged it internally. I think there were many people who did not want Labor and the Greens working together because they'd much rather work with the Liberals than the Greens and consider themselves closer politically to the Liberals than to the Greens. And I think that that's fucking true.
Absolutely.
I think that's depressingly true.
No, yeah. It's it accords with everything that we've ever said.
So we come into the 2013 election. The strategy for the party apparently is to hold the seats, pick up one more. Christine Milne, I don't think is like delusional. She knows that, you know, times are tough and like it's going to be difficult, so they want to hold on to what they've got, maybe pick up one more seat
In the Senate,
lots of
presumably.
Yes, yes, I believe so. Which will happen, I think. Yes. A whole bunch of senators are continuing. Only Scott Ludlam, Sarah Hanson-Young, and Peter Wish-Wilson are up for re-election, so that's sort of a good starting point. The most promising states were Victoria, where party veteran Janet Rice was pre-selected, friend of the show, and in the ACT, where a star candidate was picked, Simon Sheikh, director of activist group Get Up. Sheikh's candidacy came with a bonus. After a meeting with Ben Oquist and CFMEU Secretary Michael O'Connor, the union donated $50,000 to the ACT Greens in an effort to keep the hard-right Canberra politician Sed Seselja out of the Senate. Sheikh hired an Australian Youth Climate Coalition activist, Ellen Sandell,
Sound familiar?
a former official from the Victorian Department of Premier and Cabinet, to run his campaign. Their shared goal, Sandell recalls, was to wrest a Senate seat off the Liberals and save the carbon price. Do you remember Simon Sheikh very much? I just hadn't read that name for quite a long time. Well, he was the head of Get Up, like right off the bat. He was like elected at age 22, I believe. So it's pretty wild. And I remember he was a regular face on Q&A, perhaps most famously in which he fainted on Q&A. You don't remember this?
No, so I have no idea what you're talking about.
No idea, yes. Fainted on Q&A, that was a big deal. And he was sort of like, you know, yes, when Get Up was big and out there a lot and making a lot of sort of headlines, he was sort of the guy.
Okay.
I think I remember that he ran for the Greens in the Senate and then wasn't successful, said he wouldn't run again, and has ever since been the CEO of Future Super, the ethical investment fund,
okay,
which I am actually a member of. So, so thanks, Simon.
Australian ethical
for all your work,
for me. I don't know which is better, but
maybe, hopefully, Simon's directing a lot of money into the Greens, siphoning funds from certain people. And,
how?
Boosting the bottom line.
Okay,
I don't know. He'll figure it out. But that was a big issue for the party going to 2013. There were no more big private donations. Now, this is a crazy story, I thought. We talked about Graham Wood's big donation, $1 million donation, biggest donation in Australian political history at that point. Graham Wood had stressed from the beginning that his 2010 donation was a one-off. But although the uplift in the Greens vote had been gratifying, the whole experience turned sour when the Liberal Party made a series of spurious allegations against him, Brown and Milne that were referred to the Privileges Committee. Right, now here's the story.
Okay.
In 2011, as part of the forestry restructure and peace deal in Tasmania, Wood and fellow conservationist Jan Cameron had bought the Triabunna? Triabunna? Sorry.
Yeah, I don't know. I've seen this written many times. Triabunna? Triabunna?
Triabunna. Let's go with Triabunna. The woodchip mill from Guns Limited for $10 million with the intention of closing it down and perhaps turning it into a tourist development. The Greens had publicly supported the deal, and Senate leader Erica Betts argued their support was corruptly linked to the donation. that Wood was seeking a private benefit in exchange for a donation. I mean, the fucking gall of this.
Wait, so he's like, I'm going to donate to the Greens who are going to get into government and... What do you mean? Couldn't he still... He can buy the wood chip mill regardless. I don't get
I
it.
guess the deal would still have to be approved by the government.
Oh, because it's a
in
publicly
some way?
owned... No, why? It wasn't public. It's guns. I don't know how that works. Okay.
It defied logic. Wood and Cameron were bound to lose money at Tree of Winner,
Yes.
but the privileges...
Well, you know,
It's like just
a wood chip, a
insane deal.
tourism attraction, that's got to be big bucks. Much bigger than actually using it for a wood chip.
I'm going to give you $1 million so I can spend $10 million later on. Ha ha.
Ha 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 ha.
But the Privileges Community inquiry could, if it went against Brown and Milne, have seen them jailed.
Oh.
He got expensive legal representation, which he paid for out of his own pocket, and was cleared by the community. Brown denounced the whole process, which had arguably defamed Wood as an abuse of the Senate. Worse, the Wood donation itself fed the Greens' internal tensions. The New South Wales Greens had always been wary of the donation on principle, while also being unhappy that hardly any of the Wood donation had been spent there.
I mean, yeah. Yeah.
This is wrong, principally. And also, we didn't get any of this money.
And you didn't give us any of the money that we don't think we should have. Look, sure.
In a Crikey article, journalist Paul Barry accused Lee Rhiannon of hypocrisy. Rhiannon fired back. An op-ed appeared in Crikey under the byline of volunteer Norman Thompson, rejecting the accusation against her and criticising the Greens for accepting the huge donation in the first place. We need to closely consider what taking this big donation says about the Greens, it wrote. Now it appears the Greens are in the same league as the old parties. 3 months later, Thompson wrote that he regretted submitting the article and that Rhiannon had written it. The media pounced. Rhiannon thought it would be in the best interest of the party if she apologised, but regrets it now. Rhiannon and Thompson fell out, and he left the Democracy for Sale project soon afterwards. There was a push for an internal investigation into Rhiannon's conduct, but it did not proceed. The whole thing was a mess, and a turn-off for any wealthy individuals who may have contemplated a giving.
Oh, not turning off the wealthy individuals. Yeah, it is a mess. And like it's a bit dodgy and misleading to write something and put it under a volunteer's name to like defend your position. Yes. I also wonder though, because in recent years, the only people who circumvent party processes and go writing articles for newspapers about internal Green stuff are generally people who I also happen to disagree with. And I often ask myself in situations like this, like, if I agreed with them, would I take a different approach? And I don't know, because that's a fair point. It's like, yeah, someone probably, it should have been said that you need to consider what the big donation says about the Greens. Having said that, it was still from an individual, not a corporation. But it was the CEO of What If, and I don't know.
Well, this kind of goes to the critique that you've mentioned multiple times when we talk about this stuff. Is like, yes, we have a policy of not accepting corporate donations as a party. But does that go far enough? Because, yes, what does it mean for wealthy individuals to dump the biggest political donation in Australian political history into the party? And do we really want to make the party reliant on those kind of massive donations?
It does. I think it does come down to like what processes do you have in place and how closely are they followed to prevent those donors then coming back and demanding policy decisions or, particular decisions on the basis that they're a donor, or even just implicitly being like, well, if you want to maintain our relationship, that doing what I say would be good. Like, and you have to acknowledge that that's what you might think at the start when you're taking the money, like be like, oh, well, we wouldn't do that. But I feel like, that's why, and I know this isn't really kind of a defensible position, but I am kind of like, you just have to make sure that you agree with them on everything, like that there's never going to be a conflict between what they want and what the party wants. But humans are fallible.
Well, you have to have a transparent process. And I think we could agree when we talked about this donation. Remember, the Australian Greens kept that donation secret from the New South Wales Greens, which is like
insane.
Egregious.
Yes.
It's like so wrong on every level. So completely understand why they're pretty pissed off about it. And an example of like, that centralized power completely undermining the democratic structures of the party and basic transparency within it. It's like,
Yes.
if you're going to do this, if you're going to accept $1 million from a businessman, people need to be across it.
Yeah.
Can't be a cheeky little secret. Okay, 2013 election itself kicks off. The Greens headed into the 2013 election with their first fully costed platform, with all policies submitted to the Parliamentary Budget Office, which had been established under the agreement with Labor. Greens win.
Ding, ding.
Neither of the major parties followed suit. I didn't realize they didn't have to do that, but yeah, fair enough.
No, yeah, they don't.
Tony Abbott simply insisted the coalition's policy costings were bulletproof.
Yeah, that's still the case. Yep.
Great. The Greens had made some hard calls to ensure there was no repeat of the last-minute tabloid beat-ups that had plagued them in previous elections. At the 2012 National Council, Bob Brown had prevailed, and the party had dumped its perennially controversial policy to impose death duties on estates worth more than $5 million.
That's interesting. I didn't know that happened. Like, was this then reintroduced in a different form? Because obviously the Greens still have inheritance taxes in the policy platform. So did that then make its way back in, or was it specifically about the $5 million threshold?
Yeah, I mean, it's interesting. It's whether you would read this as Paddy Manning has put it, whether the policy was dumped from the platform, or as we've seen, in previous elections, I remember Larissa Waters having to say, yes, that is a policy in our platform. We're not running on that.
Which,
this particular
as
election.
I think we've said, is a little bit of a weak response.
Not good.
Yeah.
Yeah, we don't want to talk about that. It's a good policy. It's a good policy, and we shouldn't run scared from it.
Yeah.
$5 million, yo. I mean, I'm sure there's a statistic on just what percentage of the population that represents, but fuck it in hell.
Yeah.
In its place were a swag of what the Australian described as soak the rich policies, raising $43 billion, including a so-called Buffett tax, a higher marginal rate on incomes over $1 million, the Buffett rule previously supported by one Anthony Albanese, a 0.2% levy on bank assets over $100 billion, seems pretty reasonable, a tightened mining tax, and the abolition of fossil fuel subsidies. The funds would be used to raise Newstart by $50 a week, introduce universal dental care, boost funding for the Gonski school reforms by $2 billion, and triple the size of the Clean Energy Finance Corporation to $30 billion. In its post-election report, the PBO found that the total combined impact of the party's pre-election commitments would cost the Commonwealth cash balance $4 billion, while the coalition's platform would improve it by $7 billion. Given the size of the national budget, the difference was marginal. After decades of policy development, the Greens platform had been given a thumbs up of sorts for fiscal responsibility.
Hey, all good to go.
Yay!
You did it. A+.
And next paragraph. None of it mattered.
Right.
The election was an overwhelming rejection of years of division and instability under the Rudd-Gillard-Rudd governments, and there were big swings away from the Greens in every state, both in the Senate and the House of Representatives. Nationally, some 500,000 voters deserted the party in the upper house, with primaries falling from 1.7 million to 1.2 million, and the vote falling by 4% to 9%. Worst of all was Milne's home state of Tasmania, where the party's primary vote halved, falling almost 9% to 12% in the Senate and 8% across the lower house seats, including the heartland seat of Denison, where Andrew Wilkie triumphed as an independent. So yeah, pretty bad. I didn't know whether to read that as like, is that a rejection of fiscal responsibility politics? You shouldn't worry about it because it's never going to matter. Or is it sort of saying in this particular electoral context, it was never going to make a difference either way?
Yeah.
Good given
question.
everything else that was going on. Yeah. So you say the Greens are the only one who ahead of the election submit their policies to the PBO or get anything costed by the PBO, like Labor and the coalition never do that.
As far as I know, they don't use it. I mean, I guess, yeah, I could be wrong on this. That's just my understanding. Like, I don't think that the coalition uses it. I wonder if the other crossbenchers make use of it. Like maybe the Teals might use it occasionally, but I feel like it's only the Greens that I've heard say that they like that is a specific kind of assurance that they make that like every policy that they're going to take to the election is going to go through that process.
All right. In the interest of time, we will move through these last other results. I mean, Peter Whish-Wilson was re-elected in Tasmania with the help of Labor preferences. Sarah Hanson-Young gets re-elected based on the preferences of the Palmer United Party and Labor. Scott Ludlam also scrapes into the 6th seat in Western Australia on the back of PUP preferences. Julian Assange's WikiLeaks party didn't help. Against a directive from its National Council in Western Australia and New South Wales, the party sent preferences to right-wing candidates away from the Greens. The fuck? Why would you do that, Julian? Who's the party that has stood by Julian Assange for freedom and transparency? I would love to know the story behind that.
Yeah.
Did very well in the ACT. Simon Sheikh didn't win, of course, but did very well. Its best primary vote in the country, which vindicated Sheikh's candidacy, although he did not run again in 2016. Again, I'm not familiar with his position as like a Greens member or whatever.
No, me either.
Bad news in New South Wales, particularly in those target seats like Grayndler and Sydney. Anthony Albanese and Tanya Plibersek still very popular, despite everyone hating the Labor government. And I can't remember Albanese backed Rudd's return from memory, but anyway. Senate in Victoria, the Greens polled 11% of the Senate, and Janet Rice reached a quota easily, helped by Labor preferences.
Welcome,
which is
Janet.
fantastic. Big swings in Melbourne, Batman, Wills, and Melbourne Ports. The seat will later become McNamara. Oh, Batman.
Batman.
Adam Bandt was. Did I say Batman?
You said Batman. I'm pretty sure. Yeah.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
Okay, sorry.
For the nerds listening who are like, it's Batman.
Shout out to David Feeney, our good friend who loves my comedy. The best result of the night countrywide was Adam Bandt being re-elected, whose primary vote jumped 7 points up to 42.6%, and maintained his lead over the second-place Labor candidate despite 63% of Liberal preferences going to Labor in the final round of counting.
Yeah. Isn't this where we recently said something about have the Greens ever won with the Liberals in the... Oh, no, that wasn't on this podcast. That was just a conversation I was having. And I said Melbourne.
Melbourne, there you go.
Yeah.
As Guy Rundle subsequently wrote, the gallery journalists at the post-election party in West Melbourne believed to a man and woman that they were there to document the noble failure and concession speech of Adam Bandt, the man who had taken Labor's premium and previously very safe seat for a cheeky one-term tenure.
Suck
you, journalists.
our fucking cocks. I love proving journalists wrong. Tastes sweet. Idiots.
He would lose for another 13 years, actually. So,
yeah, that's right. Yeah, they're like, who's sucking what now? That's what they're saying to me.
Yeah. But the preference stuff was weird. Compounding the electoral pain, the 2013 election marked the rise of new micro-parties, including mining mogul Clive Palmer's Palmer United Party, which won Senate seats in Queensland and Tasmania and the Sunshine Coast seat of Fairfax, helped by Greens' preferences. The preference deal negotiated by Palmer and Ben Oaquist helped elect Hanson-Young and Ludlam, but was hugely controversial among Queensland Greens, who felt they'd launched the career of a charlatan. The party's candidate for Fairfax resigned in protest, and the deal rankled for years.
I don't think I understood this detail.
Yeah.
I don't think I knew that. I can see how it would happen, though. Like, I can kind of see the tendency. Although, no, this wasn't based on votes of members even. You're saying this is a preference deal negotiated from above. And I wonder if it was after this that the party made the decision then to decide preferences democratically.
Right.
Because the members were like, fuck this, we don't want this to happen again.
It does seem crazy, yeah. I mean, Clive Palmer, no good. And the Greens should.
Bold of you to say, Tom.
Yeah, I said it. I'll say it right now. I'll say it again.
Yeah,
that guy sucks.
That's right. I don't think Clive Palmer is good.
All right, so the election happens. Some people are saying, bad news for the Greens. Maybe the Greens have reached their ceiling. Maybe there's only so much Greens vote out there and they've plateaued at 10%. We will, of course, learn that that's not true. I was going to say, what do you think of that theory about the ceiling to the Greens vote? Okay, obviously it's not 10%. We've made that very clear. But do you ever think when people still put out that idea that the Greens are never going to get above, 15% or whatever?
That's a very big question, Tom.
Go on.
Because that I think gets to the heart of the entire party political strategy, of the Greens, is whether you are a minor pressure point or whether you are aiming for majority government.
Mm.
So, like, I don't know. And I still, like, I mean, yeah. At one point, I would have been like, we should be aiming for 100%. I do think that it's like, yeah, I don't know. I don't think that you should assume that there is a ceiling below that which would enable you to form government because, yeah, what's the point,
What's
know?
the point? Well, we have an
And it
18-year plan.
then you box yourself in because you're like, this is our niche.
Yeah. Well, I mean, the analysis that Paddy Manning cites is academic Narelle Miragliotta, who was sort of saying, without a major realignment of the party system, it will be difficult for the Greens to diversify their base of support beyond their natural post-materialist constituency, estimated by some scholars
Not
to
the
be around 10%.
post-materialist.
Yes.
Not the post-materialist thing. But that's the thing, is that, yeah, like if you accept the idea of a ceiling on the Greens vote, then you are a lot of the time accepting that idea of like, well, the party is post-materialist, which for anyone who isn't familiar with that term is basically they're saying that the Greens are only relevant for people who have, like, for rich people who have no concerns about keeping a roof over their head or a job or being able to afford anything, which first of all is bullshit because like a lot of, I mean, doesn't accord with the Greens policy or ideology or even with its traditional voting base, which, as we know from previous discussions on this show and like even reading inside the Greens, included a lot of like poor students, poor academics, like the whole post-materialist idea. I was told that at uni and I was like, oh yeah, that's how it works. Once you've got your basics sorted, then you care about the environment and social justice or whatever, as if they're not inherently fucking intertwined. So yeah, like I think that's why I'm cautious about the idea of like a green ceiling, because those two concepts are inherently linked and like they often go along together, is the idea that the Greens, in order to fight for social justice and the environment, cannot fight for economic justice. They're separate ideas. And that, yeah, like in order to do that, then you just look after a wealthy minority.
Yeah.
What a shit party. Who wants to do that?
Because running parallel to that, only rich people vote for the Greens, is also it's young people as well. And when people grow up, they'll vote for other parties. I'm like, young people who are always like rolling around in cash and are always materially secure, like university students and people go to TAFE and renters, classically post-materialist cohort of our society.
Yeah.
All right, now here is some juicy gossip. We're almost done for this first part of this particular chapter. But post-election, a fortnight after the disappointing election, Milne was re-elected leader unopposed at the first party room meeting in Canberra, and Bandt returned as the deputy. Di Natale was poised to take over from Sarah Hanson-Young as party room chair, but she decided to force a ballot. She got one vote, her own. Storming out of the meeting, Hanson-Young walked past a table of journalists at Aussie's Cafe at Parliament House and told them that, under Milne's leadership, the party was marching to a slow death. Comments that found their way straight into the age. Rumours that Bandt had sounded out his colleagues for a challenge in which Hanson-Young would have been his deputy were denied on all sides. But they were true.
Oh!
Lot going on there.
Wow. Okay. Hang on. So Bandt and Sarah Hanson-Young?
Yep.
And they were, I don't think of them as being a natural team, is why I'm also interested in that, beyond the idea that Adam Bandt was like prepping to take on the leadership.
Sure. That strikes me more as like a generational change move as opposed to like an ideological, bedfellows. And I'm sure there's obviously heaps of stuff that Sarah Hanson-Young and Anna Bandt agree on ideologically, but yes. I mean, I don't know. I'm sure Sarah would give more details about what actually happened there, but I love the idea of just yelling at some journalists.
Like walking past and being like, here's something for you.
This isn't on the record, but this party's fucked.
This party of mine. Really horrible.
Also, imagine being that journalist, being like, "Oh, great! Politicians are just gonna walk up to me and drop an exclusive right into my lap while I'm eating my fucking pie here."
Yeah, just like slowly chewing on their Alfredo.
Also, I'm sorry, it's got a little bit. Obviously, Sarah Hanson-Young has remained in the party and is a dedicated part of the movement for a long time. But that's a little bit Dorinda Coxy to me. Like, I went for a vote for a leadership.
I was going to say it's giving Dorinda Cox, but that's the thing. It's like, but the difference is, like she didn't fucking jump ship. So respect.
She's not a rat.
Not a rat.
All right, then the last bit of drama is the thing that we pointed to before, is that it seems that things blow up between Milne and Ben Oquist. 2 days after the party room meeting, Oquist issued a public statement citing fundamental differences of opinion between him and Milne about strategy. Why? Why do that? Behind the scenes,
thing to do.
Milne had told Oquist she would not be renewing his contract. She wanted a flatter, more collegiate structure. Oquist was furious, and Milne believes told Late Line host Tony Jones there had been a resulting walkout of staff from the leader's office. Now, this all gets a little bit messy. 5 staff were leaving her office. Some of them had been planning to go for a long time. Some people had been let go. And Paddy Manning kind of makes the point, this is very normal after an election, staff moves around. And one of those people, including the policy director, Claire Ozich, was like, had been planning to leave for a while and fully supported Milne and was a big fan. So it seems that there's a misrepresentation of a bunch of staff leaving as like a massive walkout over strategy differences by Ben Oquist.
And then Tony Jones says to Christine Milne, hey, are all your staff leaving because of this guy? And she knows that some of them have actually been fired, but doesn't want to say that and fuck them over on TV.
And
that's rough.
And struggles to explain that. And Ben Oquist had just was leaving the country for Germany on a trip, so he couldn't really be contacted to follow it up. So yes, Milne describes it as a terrible fabrication and basically says that Ben Oquist stabbed her in the back. Milne's relationship with Oquist has never recovered. The media smelt blood, and there was soon a swirl of speculation that her leadership was terminal. Pushed by reporters, Bob Brown refused to take sides between 2 of his staunchest friends and allies and declined to defend his successor when media asked him whether he thought Milne was doing a good job as a leader. Sorry, I just have no comment, Brown told the Mercury.
You asked if she's doing a good job as a leader and you have no comment. That's rough. That's a comment. Like, that's
bit bizarre.
Says it all, right?
Brown says now he thought that Milne was doing a good job, adding, she's the finest parliamentarian companion I've ever had. Okay. Milne was hurt, and to the public, it certainly looked as though the writing was on the wall for her. Of all in the party room, it was Lee Rhiannon who came out and defended Milne publicly, saying she had not been canvassed, there was no challenge, and everyone was responsible for the election result, not just the leader. While backgrounding against Milne continued, the party set about its election review ahead of the national conference to be held in 2 months' time.
Wow.
Good on you, Lee.
Fight. Yeah, but so she's saying no one came, like Adam Bandt and Sarah Hanson-Young didn't come to me.
No.
So it's bullshit. Everything's fine.
Yeah, basically.
Interesting.
I mean, I'm sure it would have been tough and very demoralizing. I also think in the wake of the 2013 election, I guess the left broadly and people on the progressive side of politics would have just been like.
People are feeling sensitive, tired, yeah.
Well, that's where we'll leave Chapter 10, Milne Rebuilds for now, and we will come back on another episode of Inside the Grids as a Patriot episode of Serious Danger to update you on where we go to from here during the Tony Abbott years. Fuck me dead.
Oh, the Tony Abbott years. Does he eat an onion in this next part, or is that later?
When is he eating the onion? Yeah, that's 2015, right? Yeah.
Maybe it's coming up. It's got to be coming up. So that's something to look forward to.
When did that motherfucker eat a motherfucking onion?
That's right. Write in if you want Tom and I to eat onions live on the podcast as we read the chapter about it.
2015. I'm looking at the ABC website. Video. Tony Abbott infamously bit into a raw onion during a visit to Tasmania in 2015. He sure did.
Who among us? Hey, thanks for being a Patreon subscriber. We really appreciate it. We love you very much. Tell someone about the show if you like it. But also just you signing up on Patreon is more than enough. And thank you. And go to the library.
Serious Danger Australia.